Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be taking a look at the Eachine UK65 Brushless Tiny Whoop. Yes, that is correct. This little tiny thing has got brushless motors, and I think we're now at a point where we can actually have brushless motors in a tiny whoop and they are actually useful. I think up to now every brushless motor that's gone in a tiny whoop hasn't really been a benefit compared to the brushed version, but with this one I really think that it is. I think the size and the power that this has is definitely better than a brushed tiny whoop, and they've managed to keep the weight pretty similar to the original brushed tiny whoops that came out. So without a battery it weighs 21 grams. I think I used to say around about 19 to 21 grams is where you want to be at with a tiny whoop, and then it is 28 grams with the included battery. And I'm going to tell you now, this is hands down the best tiny whoop that I have ever flown. Now, it's been a while since I've checked out tiny whoops, but this thing has just got everything. It really does. You know, I reviewed the Tyro 99 recently. I built it, and that one is like a $99 5-inch. This one even cheaper than that, so I think at the making of this video it's around about £65, which is under $100, and yeah, it does more than the Tyro 99. Okay, so let's talk about what this thing does. So, well, first of all, we have the tiny brushless motors, which I mentioned. They are a 603, they are 19,000 kV, so they have to go up in kV when you reduce the prop size. And yeah, I think there was a model before this one called the US65, and I think this one has a couple of upgrades, so I think those had 17,000 kV motors, so we should have a little bit more performance out of this one. But yeah, little tiny brushless motors there, and then we have got this all-in-one F3 board here, so it's got ESCs built into it. They are D-Shot 600 capable ESCs. You can do D-Shot commands, although that wasn't set up, so you can have a beacon on the motors. You can do your turtle mode if you like, and it also has got a SPI receiver built into it with telemetry. So if you are doing free sky, it will send the RSSI back to the transmitter. You can do Lua scripts, so you can do your PIDs from your transmitter. And it's got a built-in 40-channel 25mW VTX that is connected up to smart audio, so it really does do absolutely everything. The camera up the front here, it is a CMOS camera, but you really have to have that with a tiny whoop anyways, and you know, it's a pretty decent quality. So yeah, there is not a lot to complain about this model other than the color scheme. I think they've made a mistake using flags, especially, you know, this day and age. We've got the US65, so the US version, and then this is the UK65, and since realizing that they are limiting their sort of customer base with this, they have released a bunch of other canopies with different flags on that. I think they should have just gone with, you know, their own colour scheme myself, because this really is a fantastic performer and one of the best, one of the cheapest out there. And to me, the only downside of this package is the aesthetics of it. So the batteries that you get are a high volt, they're 250 milliamp, and it says that they are ATC. I mean, that doesn't really mean that much with a tiny whip. It's using a 2mm JST, and we have the same on the back of the Copter, of course, and that fits in there nicely. It does cover up the USB here. As for the Betaflight settings, everything was set up pretty nicely. As you can see, smart audio is selected on the UART3 there, and as this is a SPI based receiver, then there's no serial RX that needs to be selected. In the configuration tab, I just upped the digital idle to 6, and I've left the PID loop frequency. All of this was set up fine. I did add dynamic filters, anti-gravity and air mode. Telemetry was already on. I've also added beacon here as well, so RX lost and RS set there. And then I've also changed the power and battery tab because this was just stock settings. So if you leave it as stock settings, as soon as you take off, your battery warning will start flashing because this is a 1S, so you get instant voltage sag. So I changed that to 2.9 for the warning, and then this was set at 4.3, so if you want to use a high volt battery it might not arm, so make sure you stick that at 4.6. PID tuning, I've left their PIDs in there and they seem to be fine. I think it could do with a little bit of a tune because there's a little bit of a wobble in there, but nothing too bad. I've set my rates to how I like them there, and that's everything in there. The receiver I've changed to TAER because it's the channel map of my Tyrannus. I've also got the RSSI set up on the AUX 5. So yeah, you have to go into the channel mixer on your Tyrannus and then set up RSSI as an output. So just like you would with any other telemetry based receiver. And then I did have to change some things in the mode. So arming was set up, but I think angle I've just had to move to my position here. I've added a beeper on the AUX 3 and I've also got turtle mode on here as well. However, I would recommend really not to use this because, you know, we're just talking about 6 amp ESCs and, you know, you could end up blowing an ESC doing this. I think that's my opinion. I don't think it's worth it. So in the OSD I've actually kept everything pretty much the same. The only thing that I have changed is I turned timer 1 off because I don't see the point of knowing the full on time. I only want to know the flight time, so I turned that off. Oh, there was something I changed in the configuration. I changed the arming to 180, so, you know, if it gets stuck in a tree or, you know, if it's not completely flat when you arm it, then, you know, it will arm. So I've changed that in there as well. And while on this tab, yeah, so if you have, say, the EU version of the Tyrannus and still want to use this, then you can go in here and select Free Sky D, and then you can use it in D8 mode. The binding procedure is really easy, so you don't have to remove this canopy. We've got a tiny bind button there. They give you this screwdriver in the box and you can access it. The good thing about this is you don't have to sort of mess around plugging it in and holding the button down at the same time. You just plug it in and then after a couple of seconds it boots up. So you can see this flashing light we have got here. If you hold down the bind button for a couple of seconds, it will go into binding mode. As for other receiver options, there is a FlySky 2A, but I don't think there's DSMX at the making of this video or other options. So you might want to look at the US65 in that case. So other stuff that you get in the box, you don't get any instructions, which is a pain, but we have this really nice charger here. And what you can do is you can take a 4-cell battery and plug that straight in, or a DC adapter. It doesn't come with a DC adapter. We've also got a USB out there as well. If I plug this in, what it'll do is it'll tell you the different channels. So we have got 6 in total and I've got these 2 plugged in. So channel 3 is currently at 4.33 volts. We have got 2 switches here. So this one here you can select between 4.2 volts, so that's like your normal LiPo, and then you can do a high volt up there which is 4.35, and then this is your amps, so you can either do 0.2 amp or 0.6, and you know that is your charging rates. So if you want them to charge faster, then have the switch in that direction. But yeah, I thought this was really nice and it's very handy for charging. And I've also been given some spare props. These are a 3-blade. According to Banggood, you're going to get a 4-blade, but you know it flies fine on these, I find. And we've got some spare screws, some spare rubber bands, and we also have this screwdriver as well. A really, really nice package for the price. Next, I just want to show you the telemetry, because I think it's just amazing that this model does all of this. So I've got my Tyrannus here. If I long press the page button, then we have got all of the PIDs, and I can go through the menu, and you can do all of your other things that you can do with lure and stuff. Just absolutely amazing. You know, even the VTX frequency we can change from there. So what you have to do to get that working is of course install the Lua scripts, and we also need to go into the telemetry screen. So that's the last two, I think. So you need to discover new sensors. So that's here, you can see. So I've already done that. So we've got all of our different sensors on there. And then if I page over, I've got the Betaflight Lua script selected. So if I just exit out of there, and I'll just show you how I have got the RSSI set up. So I've actually bound this up to 16 channels so that I can also have, you know, the turtle mode on as well as my modes and things like that. I could have combined a couple of them, but yeah, so you go to the inputs, and if I go into edit there, so I've called it RSSI, and we have got the source as RSSI, and this is why you need to discover sensors first, otherwise you won't have RSSI there as an option. Then you need to set the scale to 100 dB, and then if I exit out of there and page over, and then we go into the mixer and go on there, I've actually got it set to channel 9. Edit that, so you can see I've got the source RSSI. You have to change the weight to 200 and the offset to -100, and then that will output the RSSI to a aux channel, and then in Betaflight you can select that aux channel and it all works. Okay, this is just to show you guys what the punch is like. It's a really windy day, so not the best conditions to be showing you this. Now I've done a punch out indoors and it seems ample, but outdoors this is the punch. It's ample as well outdoors. Yeah, I would say more than a brushed tiny whoop for sure. And we can do acro, we can do power loops. This is a nice one. It's so quiet, this thing, as well. That's also why I wanted to show a bit of line of sight. Oh, it's getting thrown around by the wind. It's really windy here today though. I would expect a 5-inch to get flown around today. Yeah, the performance of this one is really good. So, you know, on a calm day, if you want to fly it outdoors you can, or if you want to fly it indoors and maybe open a door or a window and do both, then you can. This is superb, look at that. Able to do power loops with it. You cannot do that with the brushed variant. It's got plenty of power to get out of it, even in these crazy windy conditions. But for me, this is where the tiny whoop is in its element, and that is indoors. And just look at these tiny gaps that this thing can get through. And I know there's a lot of brushless tiny whoops on the market now, and there are bigger ones than this, but this is why this is my favorite, because it's the size of a tiny whoop. You can get through impossible gaps, and I know that there is a demand out there for a copter that you can buy that is good indoors and outdoors, but for me, to get through those tiny gaps indoors, you're going to want to go tiny whoop size. And yeah, this one's got the power to fly outside, but really you're going to want to have two models, one for outside and one for inside. But just look how I can get all around the house here, and this one has crazy features. So I'm upstairs flying, we've got a current meter that's accurate, look at that, and it's working as well. I think it's bang on 250 milliamp when I needed to land, and we've got the RSSI there, we've got the battery voltage. I think I was getting around about a 3.5 minute flight time with the battery fully charged. I didn't charge it to a high volt here because I tend to find when you charge these 1S LiPos to a high volt, they don't last very long. So I think just under a 3-minute flight time when not charged to a high volt, but that's absolutely fine, because just look how much fun I'm able to have getting through all the gaps. I've even left the door open, and you know, you can fly this outside. It's not going to have the big power of the 5-inch or the big power of the 3-inch, so I would always get a different model. And you know, those ducts, they are always going to have an effect on the tune, so you know, you're going to have a more smoother flying model without ducts. So I would say keep the tiny whoops small and keep them indoors. And if you want to fly them outdoors on a calm day, or you know, fly through the house, through the windows and stuff, then they're great for that. But if you want something for outdoors, then make sure that you just get an outdoor model as well, is my opinion, because I don't think you can ever have both, one that is great for indoors and outdoors. There's always going to be a compromise. But just look how I can get around the house, you know. I can get through the smallest gaps, the same as you can with any tiny wheel. I mean, just look at this. You can't even fit your legs under there easily, but you know, the tiny whip has no problems there. Yep, so you can see my battery is flashing, so I'm just trying to get upstairs and land on the washing basket, and it just browns out before I disarm. So I'll put a link in the description if you wish to get one. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.